The issue of unpaid care work and domestic work is a major obstacle to achieving full gender equality. The unequal distribution of unpaid care work and domestic work responsibilities that fall on women and girls' shoulders is one of the major factors holding women and girls back. She said, I should have been in X, but because my mother fell sick 3 years ago, I had to resign from my job. I had to leave school and take care of my mother. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years. And hopefully, as she transitions and goes back home because she's been in hospital, then I will be able to carry on my responsibilities and maybe go back to school. So you can already tell that because of this responsibility, which fell squarely on this young woman in a family of about four, and the three are boys. This is holding her back, and indeed, it held her back. And we even have statistics that show that women undertake 75% of unpaid care work globally, whereby they spend up to 3 hours and more doing housework than men, and up to 10 times the amount of time a day caring for children and the elderly. According to the World Bank, there is no African country where men perform more unpaid care work than women do. The unequal distribution, therefore, of the care responsibilities among women and girls versus men and boys not only perpetuates gender inequality, but it also limits women and girls' enjoyment of human rights. And also, the Aspiration 6 that Dr. Jai spoke to of Agenda 2063 speaks about unleashing the potential of women and girls and making sure that the Africa is also driven by its own citizens, including these women and girls. But if we continue to keep them in care work and in related and unpaid care work and other duties that are not giving them the opportunity to contribute to the development of the continent, then we will not achieve this aspiration of Agenda 2063. In addition, the issue of unpaid care work is exacerbated by socioeconomic factors, whereby the intensity and amount of unpaid care work increases with poverty and social exclusion, therefore affecting women's ability to pursue decent employment opportunities and therefore, again, curtailing them from financial and economic freedom or empowerment. And this, therefore, requires that we specifically put in place measures around women's economic and financial inclusion, measures that will ensure that they are included. Now, let me also take a moment to speak a bit about continental frameworks and initiatives that exist to address unpaid care work and domestic work. The African Union Commission recognizes that unpaid care and domestic work poses a serious constraint to women and girls' empowerment. It is in this that Article 13 of the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the Rights of Women in Africa, also known as the Maputo Protocol, on economic and social welfare rights, stipulates the need for member states to take necessary measures to recognize the economic value of women in the home. And this is particularly important as reports show that unpaid care work and domestic work contribute to at least 10.8 trillion to the global economy when valued at minimum wage, as shared by Oxfam. In addition, the African Union Strategy on Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment guides on the implementation of AU's gender equality and women's empowerment commitments also recognizes the need for women to have access to quality education and control over productive resources for them to be economically empowered. Providing women and girls with access to quality education, decent work, financial resources, and economic opportunities is therefore essential for promoting economic empowerment and autonomy. Now, closer home and to the issues around economic empowerment, economic and financial inclusion for women, the African Union Commission established the AU Women and Youth Financial and Economic Inclusion 2030, which is called the Wi-Fi Initiative, and which is an initiative of the decade, African Women's Decade 2020 to 2030. The initiative seeks to address systemic bottlenecks and that conspire to perpetuate poverty, deprivation, and social injustice among women and youth in Africa. This public-private women and youth partnership aims to contribute incrementally and cumulatively to the financial and economic inclusion and empowerment, as well as address poverty, reduction, and the welfare of women and youth in Africa. For example, the initiative advocates for socially acceptable burden sharing and easing approaches that reduce the burden of child and family care on women and youth and address issues of time poverty. Therefore, addressing women's and youth economic and financial inclusion is crucial as it influences the issue of unpaid care work and domestic work, as alluded earlier. It is then worth noting that the AUC frameworks and initiatives complement global commitments. But I want to pause here and also say that in as much as it's important to have frameworks, normative frameworks, and things that African Union or the global community sets at the macro level, initiatives like the one we're launching today is important because it therefore then allows us to put action at the micro level or at the community level. And I'm equally excited about this one specifically because it is youth-led. So we are also giving communities, empowering them to solve their own problems, but also we're putting young people in the forefront. This leads me to speak to you a bit about why should young people be involved. In Africa, where we aspire for the development to be people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially as women and youth, and caring for children. This is the aspiration that Dr. Jai read. This aspiration acknowledges the significant role played by young people in addressing issues affecting their communities, the nation, and the continent at large. Therefore, involvement of young people in reshaping the discourse on unpaid care work and domestic work and driving the 5 R's, recognition, reduction, redistribution, representation, and reward, is not only desirable but essential. I commend the African Leadership Foundation and Oxfam for launching this network and the advocates, and it will create spaces and platforms for youth engagement in the care economy. We definitely want to see how this initiative rolls out, and we are happy to join hands with the two institutions as the African Union Commission. I want to conclude by commending the first cohort and say to the young people, again, you are going to be the ones that show the way. And it's going to be important that you tell us the lesson and we all learn as we go along. I also want to commend you for your continued proactiveness and steadfast dedication to being key agents of change in your communities. This is a timely initiative, and it will contribute to the increasing awareness around shared responsibility of unpaid care work across the continent. I reaffirm the Women, Gender and Youth Directorate's commitment, particularly the Youth Division, to supporting this initiative and its effort to promote shared responsibility in addressing unpaid care work and domestic care work. I thank you very much.